2015, an elite DFS Army Commando unit formed to bring high-level DFS strategy to the masses. Today, hated by DFS sharks and lineup sellers alike, they continue their quest to turn Joe into DFS pros.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Taco Tuesday PGA DFS podcast presented to you by DFSArmy.com. I am Taco, and if you come check us out at DFSArmy.com and use promo code TACO on sign up, you get a lifetime 10% off discount, and you can use that to access all of the premium tools and articles that I'll be referencing as we go throughout this podcast. It's really neat. We've got a lot of cool tools for you to be using for this slate. We're going to break it down from every angle possible. This is the second iteration of this World Golf Classic tournament here in Mexico, and this is going to be an incredibly unique week, as not only is it a no-cut event with some of the best golfers in the world, like most World Golf Classic events are, the location of this tournament is going to make the strategy of kind of similar to no-cut events in the past, but it's going to be an extreme version of those, as the high elevation in Mexico City. You've seen it before in sports like the UFC, where they go to Mexico and guys just gas out extremely quickly, or they'll have football games in Mexico City and the kickers can just kick it a mile because the elevation is just way up there, and most golf tournaments are played on either the east or the west coast, on the coastlines of Hawaii or Texas or what have you. This is going to be a completely different environment, and the guys are going to hit their balls way farther than we're used to. We would see Dustin Johnson crushing the ball 400 yards here last year on his way to victory. So we're going to be needing to look at last year's data quite a bit to try to see what led to success in the 1 year sample size we have to work with, and try to see who is trending in a very similar direction as the guys that did well here last year. And you can see on the research station, I've got a tab open for the 2017 recap. You can see who finished where, what their odds were, what their projections were for us last year. We're basically just using last year's cheat sheet to kind of help study what we should be looking at going into this week. And right off the bat, you can see that Justin Thomas might be in a good spot in this tournament. Not only did he finish 5th here last year, but Dustin Johnson came into this tournament fresh off of a win, followed it up with yet another win, because he is just a winner. And Justin Thomas is sort of the same way. Him and Dustin Johnson have way more victories than anyone else over the last few years. They're just winners. So we're going to be looking at these guys very closely. But another thing that sticks out to me, two things really. One is that driving distance is godly here. All of the top 5 outside of Thomas Pieters is hitting the ball 300 yards. And you know that Pieters is no slouch off the tee either. He came into the year. There wasn't much data to work with him. He was mostly coming off of the European Tour, outside of a second-place finish at the Genesis coming in. He didn't have any other real data to work with them, but we know now that Thomas Pieters is a 300-yard bomber. So the top all the guys that finished T5 or better, their distance is off the tee. Dustin Johnson, 315 yards off the tee. You know, he's the most excellent ball smasher. I was about to say ball striker. That is important, but ball smashing also very important, as it just goes a long way. Tommy Fleetwood also over 300 yards off the tee. John Rahm, another huge bomber, over 300 off the tee. Ross Fisher, 309 yards off the tee. Justin Thomas, 308 yards off the tee. Rory McIlroy, 316 yards off the tee. Are you beginning to see a little bit of a trend here? And then you've got Brandt Snedeker, 283 yards off of the tee. And the thing about Snedeker, he's like the reverse Gary Woodland. Gary Woodland's a bomber who does great on accuracy courses. And Brandt Snedeker's an accuracy guy. He always does great on bombers courses. Think like Pebble Beach or Farmers. And he also just has a thing for Poa Inua grass, which we'll be putting on this week. So looking at that, we see driving distance really stick out. And we also see, we do see a lot of European names in this event, and they did very, very well here last year. Last year, Tommy Fleetwood came within a stroke of beating Dustin Johnson, came in at negative 13 on the week. 13 strokes under par, finished second behind DJ, solo second. We saw him coming in with a 144-1 line total that drifted all the way to 120-1. He's a lot better than that now. He's turned into a world-class golfer, but this time last year, he was coming in spectacular form as well, outside of a couple of missed cuts. We also saw Ross Fisher come in here off of a couple of missed European Tour cuts, but Fleetwood had won at Abu Dhabi, which he also won at this year. You know, I've included Abu Dhabi in the recent form section because there's no better bombers course than Abu Dhabi. That is a 7,800 yard long bombers course where the bombers have historically dominated, and guys that do well. You know, Dustin Johnson finished second. Tommy Fleetwood finished first at the Abu Dhabi tournament that year. And those two finished top two at this event in 2017. We see a few other guys, like Ross Fisher did well at Abu Dhabi. Tyrrell Hatton did well at Abu Dhabi, and these guys all finished top 10. So one angle to possibly look at here, European guys that did well at Abu Dhabi, all of them ended up finishing well. And the ones that did poorly actually tended to do poorly outside of Pablo Larrazabal, who did finish runner-up at Abu Dhabi. And he sucked. He sucked last year at this event, but that was a debut for him as far as the PGA Tour goes, or at least he had not been on the PGA Tour in a long while. And that's another thing to consider here, is that some of these very, very young European guys making their debut, we don't really know what to make of them. You can't get too married to them. Although this week I'm incredibly excited for a few of these European guys. I've been waiting forever for them to make their appearance on the PGA Tour. A study that I did last year was I took other courses that may have been very, very high in elevation, like the Barracuda or the Omega Masters, and I think it's Switzerland that's up there pretty high. The BMW at Cherry Hills, also very high elevation there. It's hard to find a lot of. It doesn't seem like that really mattered at all. All of the top five, none of them had even played at these courses, or like Tommy Fleetwood did not that great. Ross Fisher also not that great at the Omega Masters. Tyrrell Hatton also finished top 10 last year. He missed the cut at the Omega Masters, as were the guys that did well at the Omega Masters, like Scott Hend, Pablo Larrazabal, Danny Willett, who just sucks now. Those guys did well and almost came dead last here. So I don't see any correlation whatsoever between other courses with elevation, because none of them can really compare to this one. This is about 7,000 miles up in the air. This dwarfs even Denver, and we don't have these Denver courses. There's like one. I think that was Silverado. I think that was the BMW at Cherry Hills. Or no, that was the Barracuda. My bad. But still, I don't see any correlation there. I thought that was something that would be important last year, so I added it to this event, trying to think of something to analyze this course with. But that really didn't correlate with results. What really correlated with results was not only having extreme driving accuracy, which allows you to hit very small wedges on your second shot, but also green regulation percentage was a very important statistic that stuck out. Scrambling, or strokes gained around the green, made almost no difference. Ross Fisher was like dead last in the week in scrambling, and he almost won. He came within 2 strokes of the lead. Driving accuracy we see also not being very important, because most of these guys will honestly club down. They're not going to even, outside of maybe DJ, who can bomb it anywhere, we're not going to see these guys We're not going to see them bombing it off the tee most of the time because the ball is just going to fly. You're going to be able to use your 2-iron and 3-iron. We saw guys like Dustin Johnson doing that last year. Would just leave the driver in the bag and just hit, even on a par 5, they would hit like a 3-wood or a 2-iron or something, and then a 7 or 8-iron for their approach shot. So these par 5s actually play like par 4s. And when you're looking at the fantasy scoring stats for this week, I know fantasy points per hole is a pretty cool overall metric, but I like fantasy points per hole at a par 4 on par 4s, because I think these par 5s are going for the longer bombers, which makes up most of this field. All the shorter guys tended to really all the best golfers in the world tend to be bombers. They just have a natural advantage there. I'm specifically looking at guys who are very good at par 4 scoring, since these par 5s are pretty much going to play like a par 4. We're going to always be hitting our wedges and short irons into the green, and it's going to be key. Strokes gained approach, obviously that's going to be key. That is key every single week. That is just the best stat in golf. Strokes gained around the green, I'm ignoring that almost completely. We didn't see it. We didn't see a success come from that at all last year. And putting, I think I'm going to focus a little bit more on putting on POA Anua grass. The guys that, guys like Snedeker, Phil Mickelson, the guys that usually putt well on POA Anua greens, they did well here. It's just a special type of green, and it can help with how sort of random the green is a little way. It kind of equals the field out from good putters. It can allow for bad or really bad putters to do a little bit better here. We see that all the time with POA Anua greens. And then I've also added in the strokes gained section, just strokes gained during strong field events. The Masters, the Players, these WGC events, of course, the Memorial, these super strong fields where it's the best of the best. And I wanted to see who stuck out the most when it's the best of the best against each other. And I really like the way those stats came through. And for the rest of the research station here, for anyone who doesn't know what all is on here, wants to think of a reason to come check us out at dfsarmy.com, promo code TACO. Hey, you can see long-term form. I love the stats so much. I just used the last 2 years and all of their finishes, and I didn't even bother adding the cuts made, because that doesn't really matter a whole lot this week. I'm mostly looking at top 50, top 40, top 30, top 20, top 10, top 5 percentage. Really, top 20 percentage, top 10 percentage is going to be key this week. We're going to want those guys that have high upside. If you don't know why Dustin Johnson is so expensive all the time, outside of his, him being the world number 1 and him winning tournaments all the time, and him being the defending champ, just these stats really put into perspective how good Dustin Johnson is. Over the last 2 years, he's played 51 PGA Tour events and has an 82% top 20 percentage. That is excellent. 82% of the time he's finishing top 20. 57% of the time he's finishing top 10. 45% of the time he is finishing in the top 5. He is nasty. And now, of course, you can see the course history, the whole 1 year of course history, and further break that down, the recap section. You can see the odds. We can see the odds drifts. I will post those on Wednesday to see where the lines are moving. Last year, we saw the leader in the odds drifts was Tommy Fleetwood by a long shot. And we also saw Matthew Fitzpatrick coming in right behind him, and he ended up finishing T16. Not bad. And we've seen a few of these guys that move drastically in the lines, that we've seen them post very high finishing positions. So that's something to look into. It'll help you come up with some last minute plays and see who is trending in the right direction. And then, of course, your recent form. The only thing I've added outside of the recent form for the PGA Tour this year is I added the Abu Dhabi tournament, as it's a really nice corollary course, and then the WGC event that we had over the winter. I thought that was pretty important to add, as a lot of the field that played here will also be playing, or also played at the WGC event over the winter in China, or the HSBC Championship. I think it was HSBC, HBC. I don't know, the WGC China event. Okay, so before I go into the field here, just really quickly going to talk about the no-cut nature of this event. There will be 70, I think exactly 70, yeah, no, only 65 guys in this event. It's not even a full field for a no-cut event, as we have a few guys skipping out on the tournament. We have Rory McIlroy and Henrik Stenson, who qualified but will not be playing, along with Jason Day, Hideki Matsuyama, and the injured Brooks Koepka. And he's very, very clearly injured, as last few events we've seen him finish dead last. Something's wrong with Koepka. We might not see him for a little bit, but outside of those 5, it's going to be the top 50 in the world in the official world golf rankings. And then we've got a few guys who have qualified by either wins on the European Tour or winning the Asian Tour. You've got the world top-ranked Mexican Abraham Ancer here, guys like that. So really, it's the top 50 in the world, and then a handful of scrubs that qualified by other means, and then some guys that qualified with some wins and are actually some very, very tempting plays here. Although, like I had mentioned, these European guys in their first start, they're going to be oh so juicy as far as ownership and stuff like that. But, at a no-cut, definitely safer to go with them than at a cut event than first-timers. I mean, we saw last week Dylan Fratelli just crushed it in his PGA debut. So, I don't know. We'll get into there as we go down the field. Let's start off with last year's defending champion and number 1 ranked golfer in the world, Dustin Johnson. I already gouted about him earlier. He is just a monster. Very much a lock for the top 10, top 5 here, certainly, in this reduced field. The clear-cut favorite to win, currently at 6-1 in a tiny field like this. That's not actually that great, 6-1, because, 6-1 is alright for someone at 12K in a full field, but with how concentrated the studs are in this group, or this event, 6-1 is not bad, considering you have Spieth, Thomas, Rahm, Fleetwood, Fowler, Rose, etc., all in this field. Dustin Johnson is the leader by quite a large margin of anyone in this field in fantasy point scoring per hole. He averages 1.25 fantasy points per hole, and second closest to that mark would be Justin Thomas and Jon Rahm at 1.1 even. So he averages 0.13 more fantasy points per individual hole than anyone else in this field. He's a monster. He's going to be the clear chalk as usual. He's just Dustin Johnson. This is like Russell Westbrook a few years ago. You just play him and move along. He's also the leader in birdie or better percentage by a pretty decent margin in this field. Very strong and strong fields. Of course, he bombs it. He's the bomber. He's the premier bomber in all of golf. Every other part of his game. Oh my gosh, I sound like Dr. Steve Brule, but every part of Dustin Johnson's game is very good for your health. I would do a terrible John C. Reilly impression there. I love that show. I love Dustin Johnson. I love everything about him this week. You just lock him in and roll in cash. Last week, that we were all over Justin Thomas, and this is again I love Justin Thomas here. For me, it's going to be a battle between like DJ and Justin Thomas. Who do I love more? And I think a lot of the field is going to be with me here. The plays in this top tier range, of course, are gonna be, knock off $1,000 from Thomas and you get Jon Rahm, Jordan Spieth. Those are going to be really nice GPP plays. Especially, Rahm and Thomas. They're true bombers. They hit it 314, 307 yards off of the tee, respectively. they're almost kind of the same play in a way, except for Justin Thomas is extremely good at par 4 scoring. His numbers are very, very similar to Dustin Johnson. He averages .99 fantasy points per hole on par 4s, as where Justin Thomas's average .96. He's definitely stuck out on par 4s, and he's just struggled at par 3s, and doesn't quite have the insane scoring numbers and eagles that Dustin Johnson has when it comes to par 5s. He's still very good there. Thomas, I really like, coming off of a victory. He was quite sneaky last week, honestly. Like, his ownership should have been a lot higher. I loved him. I told you guys I was all about him as my favorite stud. And he matches everything that we're looking for here. His approach game is significantly better than Dustin Johnson's right now, although he doesn't gain as many strokes off of the tee, despite being longer. Dustin Johnson's just freaky off the tee. He can place it just perfectly. And Justin Thomas, we saw from last week that he, even on the back nine when he was making that comeback for the win, he took some very questionable shots and had to hit some Phil Mickelson type shots to get out of it. His approach game, of course, when he was in the fairway, his approach game was just freaky good for how hard of a course that was. You'd see guys just aiming for the middle of the green, trying to get it on the green. He would just stick it to within inches, if not feet, or feet, if not inches of the pin. He was pretty nasty, but honestly, he wouldn't have even won the tournament last week if it wasn't for an extremely lucky shot on his par 3 on the island hole. He had bounced it off of the very front part in front of the water. It bounced way sky high and landed right next to the hole. Got so freaking lucky. That is the only reason Luke List is not a winner on tour this year. That is the only reason. So while Justin Thomas is fresh off of a win, and he does deserve it, he deserves, even though he got lucky. I'm sure that everyone had to have some sort of luck out there. Incredibly hard course. And, I don't like, one thing I'm thinking about this week is I don't like overanalyzing how people did last week with how crazy and hard of a course it was, because this week the course is a night and day difference from the last course. The Honda Classic was one of the hardest. It had one of the hardest courses. The PGA National course is just extremely hard, top 5 in difficulty on tour. This is a very easy course in comparison. They will be, with the smaller field. We'll still see several guys finishing -10 or worse. Last year you saw 9 guys finish -10 or worse, with DJ winning at a -14. So it's not like insane. It's not like they're going to hit -20. I mean, they could. Who knows? This tournament's only been going on for 1 year. But it's going to be a moderately easy course. I don't have the exact numbers like I do for most other courses, so I can't pull out how hard it was compared to other courses, but it's still we can tell it's pretty easy because your ball is just going to be going a lot longer than it usually does, and that's always helpful. It is a 7,300 yard par 71, and like I'd said earlier, the par 5s play like par 4s. I've kind of broken down this course left and right here. Just wanted to kind of really break that down, because it's going to be important to know what exactly we're looking for this week. But of these top studs, you really can't go wrong no matter which way you go, because the elevation stuff, it helps almost all of them, especially if you can just take advantage of it and hit these crazy 400-yard drives. You're going to be using small wedges and chipping onto these greens almost. It should make for some very tough scoring. So a lot harder than last week, but Justin Thomas tamed the course last week. This week should be even easier for him, and Thomas specifically excels at no-cut events. So we saw his first 4 wins on tour come during these no-cut events at Kapalua and whatnot. So he's just incredibly strong GPP option. Has all the upside in the world. DJ, JT, very easy to recommend these plays. They're the most expensive for a reason. Now, we get into the $10,000 range here with John Rahm at 10.6, Jordan Spieth at 10.5, and Tommy Fleetwood at 10,000 even. And the pricing from FanDuel to DraftKings this week is a little, the differences aren't quite as drastic. We only see a couple of guys that are priced way off, like Justin Rose is very, very expensive on FanDuel compared to DraftKings, and Bubba Watson, Tyrrell Hatton, Dylan Fratelli, those guys are really cheap on FanDuel compared to DraftKings. But it's not as crazy as weeks before. We don't have those guys that stick out ridiculously. So, for Rahm, Spieth, and Fleetwood, they're 12-1, 11-9, and 11-3 on FanDuel. So pretty similarly priced on both sites. Jon Rahm came third here last year. Won the Career Builder Championships. It's been solid all year long. Hasn't really posted outside of the top 30, except for he did not look too hot at the WGC's. Oh my gosh! I need to look this up so I remember the exact wordage here. The HSBC Championship in China. 36 out of 70 golfers there, just but at this event last year, he crushed it, literally and figuratively, he crushed it. Long-term, 56% top 20 percentage, it's pretty good. Not as good as Spieth, of course, but he's still a young guy, has all the upside in the world. Recently, when he won at the Spanish Open, he put up more fantasy points. I'd look this up. He put up more fantasy points in that event at 160 than anyone on the PGA Tour has done ever in the last 8 years. Like, it's not ever. I didn't look that far, but in the last 8 years, no one has posted any single fantasy scoring output that came anywhere near what Jon Rahm did at the Italian Open in the European Tour. Granted, those are easier, but still, it's just impressive at the amount of scoring he was able to put out there. When we look at his fantasy scoring, it's right on par with Justin Thomas. It's these same numbers, pretty much. 1.1 fantasy points per hole, behind only Dustin Johnson there. Very good. Jon Rahm, of course, he's always been extremely popular, but now that his price is starting to, well, not starting to, for this whole season, his price has pretty much been on par with the studs because he belongs there. The long-term numbers aren't as good looking as Jordan Spieth's, like I had said. And the 2 wins, he really doesn't, if you're just looking at wins alone, between DJ, JT, Jon Rahm, and Jordan Spieth, they've all got at least 7 or more wins. He's only has 2, but of course, he, looking at the event sample size here, he has about 39. He has 39 events played on the PGA Tour, and over the last 2 or 3 years, DJ, Justin Thomas, Spieth, they're around 50 each. So the winning upside, I guess, isn't quite there, but he's rounding into form. He does have the one European golf victory, and almost won this last year, honestly. Rahm is just, he's a super bomber, great GPP play. Very, very, very good in strong fields. Ranks number 1 of anyone in this entire field in strong field events. Great birdie or better percentage. Second only to Dustin Johnson. And he can crush the ball a mile. Actually, his strokes gained off the tee numbers, they're tied for best in the field with Dustin Johnson. So, you can't go wrong with any of these top 3, top 4, top 5 guys, honestly, just to be honest. Jordan Spieth at 10,500, 11.9 on FanDuel, is probably going to be the lowest owned out of all of these studs, because he doesn't really strike you as a bomber. But like I had mentioned with Rahm a few times, the long-term numbers just look a lot better with Spieth. We see that disgusting 83% top 30 percentage, and 72% top 20 percentage, 50% top 10 percentage. That's amazing. Half the time he's finishing top 10. That's Jordan Spieth for you. He wasn't the number 1 in the world for as long as a lot of people think, because Jason Day kind of swooped in right there before Dustin Johnson pretty much took that over. But he's the former number 1, and he'll probably be the new world number 1 at some point or another. He is always going to be right there in the mix. He hasn't had the best of seasons this year. He did miss the cut by a stroke at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. But all top 20s outside of that. Saw him 9th at the Genesis, but just kind of under the radar for him. 12th here last year. Kind of been a bridesmaid this year. And we're not really used to seeing that from him. Yeah, but he's definitely going to win one of these events here soon. He's going to win like the Travelers or the Valspar, the John Deere Classic. One of these. He's going to take down some victories this year for sure. Don't get it wrong. He's not going to win 0 tournaments. And hell, the fact that I'm surprised he hasn't won a tournament yet should show you how good of a golfer he is. 72.8% green and regulation percentage is just nasty. So good. So good. His approach game is as good as it's ever been. Just not the longest off of the tee, but he's still he's not like a Luke Donald by any means. He averages 298 yards off of the tee, almost 299, so he's no slouch. And his driving accuracy percentage is going to be a little bit better than the super bombers up top. It's just like his max driving distance is like 320, 330, as where Johnson and Thomas will be at like 360 or better. They could hit 400-yard drives. I don't see Jordan Spieth doing that this week, but still, other than that, statistically, he's very positive in every category. He just has not been putting that well this year. And long term, Jordan Spieth is a fantastic putter. So his putter can definitely come through for him. It's not like he is Sergio. But shoot, we've even seen it coming through for Sergio before. So with Spieth, putting is such a high variance stat. I really do like Spieth. It's just I'm going to like a few of these guys in this range a little bit more. So if I were to attack this slate differently, maybe a good play would be just to load up on Spieth for the lower ownership. It's just that I am going to be on Justin Thomas and Dustin Johnson because I'm scared to not use them, honestly. Even Rahm, I'm probably going to have more Rahm than Spieth. I'm kind of just following the crowd here with these bombers, but I really, really believe that that at a no-cut event, the eagle upside of these super long bombers can't be ignored, especially with how freakishly long they can drive the ball off of the tee. If you're chipping for eagle, you're just going to have such a high upside because eagles are so important in no-cut events. They're worth 8 fantasy points. Compared to a birdie, it's worth 3. A bogey is only worth minus 1/2 fantasy points. A double bogey, or you get a triple bogey, and it's only worth minus 1. If you get an eagle, that is worth 8 fantasy points. That will do you. You can get like 5 eagles and be the highest scoring guy and not even win. Not even come top 5. You just need eagles. And they're kind of random, but you know that guys like Dustin Johnson, Jon Rahm, Justin Thomas, they're going to get more eagles than anyone else, and you can see it in their fantasy scoring per hole, especially with DJ. So moving down to the chalk this week. Guarantee you he's the chalk. Tommy Fleetwood made his PGA debut at the Genesis Open. Well, for the year. He's played on the PGA Tour before. He has. But he made a stateside debut for the year at the Genesis Open. Finished T37. Was alright. Stayed the chalk last week and just crushed it, finishing T4. Was like 29% owned, almost 30% owned in tournaments, so I think that chalk absolutely continues onto this week. His game log is magnificent. He defended his title at the Abu Dhabi tournament. Man, he's just the hottest name in golf right now. Playing if you play the draft app, he's very underpriced on there, but everyone knows it. He's being picked like 3rd or 4th overall, even over guys like Jordan Spieth and Jon Rahm. The hype couldn't be any higher with that guy. And just looking at his European Tour history, everything suggests that this guy is a monster at greens and regulation percentage. You don't see it in the stats yet with these 2 tournaments in the PGA Tour, but we know that he is a greens monster. He averages about 75% of his greens hit in regulation on the European Tour, and it goes for years. He is very, very good at hitting greens. Very long off of the tee. We saw it. He only comes in at 297 yards off of the tee, but that is going to be flawed because, the Genesis Open, no one uses a driver on that course ever. So that's throwing some of these numbers off right away. But man, Tommy Fleetwood, just the hype is real with him. If you want to fade him completely, it's not a bad spot for it. He almost won this tournament last year, but he is still kind of young, kind of green, that a horrible last place finish isn't outside of the realm of possibility. It still wouldn't be a major surprise. He's played all of 16 PGA Tour events, and he's missed the cut on at least 12% of them, if not 75% of them, because his T70 percentage is coming in at around 88%. His T60 percentage 75%. But a lot of that was when he had first made his PGA Tour debut and was not good at all, was missing cuts. But now he is the world's 11th ranked golfer overall, and he's not showing any signs of slowing down anytime soon. So Tommy Fleetwood is someone that strongly needs to be considered this week. Ricky Fowler is coming in at under $10,000, $9,800 for Ricky Fowler. $11,700 on FanDuel, so the pricing difference is quite crazy there. I think it's going to make him popular on DraftKings. He's already a popular golfer as it is. And no one's going to be crazy owned because of the pricing. It's somewhat fair. It's going to be spread around all these studs. So Ricky Fowler may become a bit of a forgotten man. He's missed the cut twice in his 3 PGA Tour events so far this year. So the price is really nice for him. It's just man, these missed cuts are probably going to scare people right off of him. It'll be interesting to see, because we saw Fowler gain some ownership at the Waste Management. He was like the chalk at the Waste Management, despite the fact that he had missed the cut the week before at the Farmers Insurance Open. I don't know what another missed cut will do to him, but his stats are great. Honestly, a 61%. Top 20% over the long term, and that's a very large sample there because he plays a ton. 34% top 5 percentage. That is excellent. 4 wins on tour over the last 2 years, and he really wasn't someone that won a whole lot. He still never won a major, but he still comes in good at strong fields, very good at Sawgrass and Memorial and stuff like that. He hasn't been the longest off of the tee. His driving distance has gone down this year, 294 yards off of the tee, but his driving accuracy percentage and birdie better percentage, green regulation percentage, all spectacular. Every single one of his strokes gained stats are positive. Everything. He's solid for GPP because no one's... I don't know. It's hard to know what to make of him because if Fowler comes in at 15%, which would be way more than I expect him to be owned, it still just wouldn't be surprising just because he's Ricky Fowler. He wears the shiny shirts. He has the fancy Puma contract. Everybody loves him. I don't know. I'll just avoid him because of the form right now. Although for most other golfers, having that kind of form where he's only missing the cut by a stroke or two coming in with an ownership, if it was any other golfers, if it was Justin Rose coming in like that, nobody would own him at all. That's when I'd be more interested in the play. But since it's Ricky Fowler, I don't know. I'm just going to pass on him. Justin Rose is $12,000 on FanDuel, $9,700 on DraftKings. There's quite the difference there. Huge difference. And that dude is hot as could be. No homo or anything, but Jesus Christ, he was insane over the swing season. Won the WGC HBSC championships. In his only event that he's played on tour this year, the Farmers Insurance Open, he finished 8th. He has just been en fuego. And really, last year we saw Justin Rose take a big step up. The 2 years before that, he was kind of floundering a little bit. I know he almost won, or he did win the gold medal in the Olympics in golf. But, Rose only has a couple of wins over the last few years. He hasn't quite been the Rose that we've known and loved over the last decade in golf or so, but he has really improved. He's certainly not injured anymore. He's now a year or two removed from his injury, and he is looking excellent. I think he's an amazing under-the-radar play here. He's the only one of these studs that didn't do well last year. He finished T38, and I don't really care about that because his form is just insane right now. He's very comparable to guys like Ricky Fowler. If you just look at the statistics, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Thomas even. His stats kind of look similar to Justin Thomas outside of all these victories. And honestly, the the tail of the tape or the tail of the stats paint a very good picture for Justin Rose. Just over 300 in driving distance. He's always driven the ball very long. The only stat of his I don't really like is his birdie or better percentage, but again, we haven't seen much of him this year, so that could be a little bit confounded, especially with him playing the Farmers Insurance Open, which is a tougher course. Well, two tougher courses. Good and strong field, good at gaining strokes off the tee. Really, all of his metrics outside of putting are in the positive, and putting is just coming in just slightly under average. It's actually pretty good for a Justin Rose, who's usually pretty bad. The stat with Rose that I absolutely love this week is he actually ranks, even though Dustin Johnson is by far the best at fantasy scoring per hole, he is the best in the entire field at par 4 fantasy scoring per hole. Went a little bit longer term when collecting those stats, but that is pretty rock solid. Justin Rose with the amazing par 4 game, which he's always been great at. I would like to see his approach numbers be a little bit better, because they're good, but they don't pop off the page like Mickelson or Justin Thomas right now. But I really love me some Rose. If he can even putt somewhat okay, which, you know, Poa Nua is good for, he could be a really low-key amazing pick for next week. So he's one of the guys I'm circling for sure. Phil Mickelson is hot as could be right now. 3 straight top 6 finishes for him. Finished T7 at this event last year. Really has been a cut-making monster. I know he missed the cut at the Career Builder to start the season off, but finished T15 at the WGC over the winter in China. Really, last year he didn't miss a cut. He was like 20 for 20 in cuts, and I don't know if a whole lot of people even realize that. There wasn't a whole lot of talk about him. He's in a much better place now. Of course, the odds are going to be a touch inflated because it's Phil Mickelson, huge, big public figure. But at $9,300, that is an excellent cash game play. I don't care about his driving accuracy because he's Phil Mickelson. He does not need to hit the fairway. He's so good at scrambling. And his putting numbers have been off the charts, especially at Poa Nua. All of the studs here, 9,000 and above, he is by far the best at putting on Poa. And well, we've known this for a while. The West Coast swing is where most of the Poa is at, and he's very good at putting, very good at West Coast golf in general. I think he's going to do great, honestly. He did well last year. I just love the price at $9,300. I don't think you need to go too ham on these expensive guys outside of a few. You just need to select a few for yourself and use them for your pool. Like I'll mostly be using Fleetwood, Thomas, and Justin. Phil Mickelson could be one of those guys for sure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. His statistically he's looking just great. Sergio Garcia is $9,100, and he is also very, very underpriced. Now, you can see from the long-term form numbers that he doesn't have the upside. He does have 2 wins, but only a 14% top 5 percentage. But when looking at top 30 and top 20 percentages, he's right on par with everyone else up to like Dustin Johnson, honestly. And he's always been a solid cut maker, just really good at staying in the top half of the field. He just can't putt because he's Sergio. Finished 12th last year. And I love anyone that played here last year. I like them over guys that didn't play here last year, even if they did poorly. And it's just because they have the scorecard from last year. You're gonna see guys struggle round 1 and then kind of get it together through rounds 2, 3, and 4. Throughout the week, you're going to see this because you're going to be collecting the numbers in your yardage books. It's all going to be thrown off entirely. Like all of your clubs are going to be thrown off because the ball is just going to travel farther than you're used to. And they know this going in, but it must be really nice for guys like Dustin Johnson who come in, have their scorecard from last year, know exactly where to hit it, to have success. Maybe if they've gotten longer off the tee over the last year or something, it might be a little different for him. But for the most part, playing here last year is going to be a big advantage. So Sergio Garcia, I'm feeling it. He's only $9,100. You could play him in cash. I like him as a cash game play for sure. Bubba Watson would not play him in cash at $8,900. Maybe on FanDuel where he's $9,600. He really sticks out there in price. He's going to be not really a lock, but he's going to be a very popular play on there. He's coming off of his victory at the Genesis Open. And I know he was horrible at the Career Builder. He couldn't have been any worse, but he's really rounding into form here a bit. He's kind of getting over himself. He's got the Travelers coming up sometime soon. I mean, we're going to see Bubba Watson rounded into form, I think. He was looking so miserable over the second half of last season, just missing cut after cut. He wasn't even going to China and winning tournaments like he usually does during the offseason. And there's some real concern about Bubba. It was nice to see him get back on board at the Genesis, and he couldn't have looked any better. But I won't be playing him. Not when I could have Sergio Garcia for $200 more. Absolutely not. But the difference between the two on FanDuel is almost $3,000. So, well, $2,000, my bad. But still, it's nuts how crazy the differences are on the two sites. And on FanDuel, or on DraftKings, honestly, everyone's going to be looking at the next few guys I'm going to be talking about over Bubba. But Bubba, I do like how, obviously, he's very long off the tee. That's one of the main things that he is known for. It's being one of the world's best bombers. And outside of scrambling, which the stats from last year showed didn't matter a whole lot, statistically he's looking positive in every single mark. Off the tee, approach, putting, on POA, strong fields, everything. He comes in positively. So for GPP, there's nothing wrong with Bubba at all. But he's going to be dwarfed a bit by Alexander Noren, who he doesn't have any wins on the PGA Tour yet, but he's won 4 times over the last year in Europe. 11,600 on FanDuel, 8,800 on DraftKings. Another big difference there. Like I said, the studs up top are very close in price, but once you get down to this range, the FanDuel pricing can be quite drastic in the differences between that and DraftKings. Alexander Noren has killed the PGA Tour this year. All 4 of his finishes over the last 5 weeks have been top 21. Gotta say top 21, not 20th, or not top 20. He's at the Waste Management. He finished T21, but still just amazing for him. 31st at the WGC HSBC Championships over the winter. Not the greatest, but shoot, this guy, he's coming in so hot. 3rd last week at the Honda Classic. Last year he came in T55. Not good. Really is not that great at WGC events overall. It looks maybe he's the trap play when looking at the strokes gained in strong fields. He's by far the worst of anyone. He comes at minus 0.88, and everyone else is like 1 or over in this range. So he kind of makes for a bit of a trap play, but I also think that he is a lot better right now than he has been, because he's been a top 15 golfer in the world for a while now with all these European Tour wins, and it's gotten him invited into a lot of strong fields. He's played 22 PGA Tour events, and it's kind of up and down with his results. No wins, but an 18% top 5 percentage is shabby. And, a top 50 percentage of 73% is okay. I mean, that's just okay. But right now he's in super hot form. He's going to be incredibly popular. He sticks out as an odds value play. But optimally, I think that you should fade Noren. For like game theory and ownership, he's going to be over-owned, and the leverage with him is knowing that he sucked it up here last year, and generally in strong field WGC events, he's not good. And if you want to go by the statistics here, his approach game really makes you want to play him. Phil Mickelson, Justin Thomas stick out as the guys that have the best approach game of anyone in the stud category. But his scrambling has been shaky. Poa Anua, he's not the best putter on those. He is a great putter overall, but his Poa Anua numbers are not good. And the strokes gained off of the tee. I mean, he drives at 300 yards and with pretty good accuracy. He's great off of the tee. And that's a positive for him this week. So with Noren, he has his ups and his downs. You can play him, and he's probably going to be a strong play, or you could just full fade him and watch 20-30% of the field go with him. It's up to you. I'm going to be all about the next guy because I don't think I've not tooted his horn. As long as I can guarantee you that his 100% made cut percentage continues on through next week. I don't know if his 100% top 60 percentage will continue. We saw his top 50 percentage broken with a T51 at the Farmers. Kind of ruined that metric for him, but that was his worst finish ever. At least since coming back to the PGA Tour last year. I'll say who I'm talking about, but I'm sure half of you know who I'm talking about already. Patrick Cantlay, $8,600, $9,800. I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong one. $8,700, $10,000 on FanDuel. But man, that's a great price for both sites. All about it. Never missed a cut. After this event, we'll still have never missed a cut. T4 at the Genesis. Unlimited upside. T15 at his first WGC event over the winter. 58% top 20 percentage in 19 starts on the PGA Tour. This guy is awesome. $8,700 is too cheap for him. I'm going to blast him. I've been using him like crazy all year long, and it has done nothing but pay dividends. He's a cash game lock. Yeah, I'm going to start most of my rosters off with Cantlay and move from there, honestly. I know I'm going to want a lot of exposure to a lot of these guys because in these strong fields like Majors and WGCs, you kind of want to play everyone because the pricing is soft. But I personally am going to be using a crap ton of Cantlay on every single slate until he misses a cut or does poorly or something. He's just awesome. I don't like the fact that a lot of his scoring does come from par 3s, but he's very, very, very good at par 3s. And par 5s. Par 4s are actually where he struggles, and that's the one part of his game that I don't like. Other than that, statistically, he destroys greens in regulation. Great approach game. I love that. Great in strong fields. I don't think he's been in too many, but he did well this WGC event. So he's no stranger to this. I absolutely love Cantlay, and he's one of my favorite plays of the entire week. Probably just kind of go through this whole field, honestly. It's going to be we're nearing 50 minutes into this podcast, so I will try to wrap up. I will go quickly through this field, but I'm going to try to talk about every it's not NASCAR time yet, not every driver, but every golfer in this field. But I'm going to move kind of quickly along, maybe stop on a few guys I want to rant and rave over. So the next guy on the list, Tyrrell Hatton, $8,600 on DraftKings, $9,800 on FanDuel. Not huge on him. I know he finished 10th last year, but right now his approach game is in the toilet. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Tony Finau is the longest driver on this course, $8,500, $10,700 on FanDuel. That's kind of pricey. He almost won the Genesis. T2 at the Genesis. He's been flirting with winning for so long now. He finally missed his first cut in 20 events at the Waste Management. Missed it by one stroke. And then turned around and got a T2 at the Genesis with no ownership. Like, everyone jumped off of him. It was crazy. But Finau is a slam dunk play this week. I love him. I love Cantlay. I love these guys. Like, I love this range so much. Yeah, I love him. Just, I'm looking for bombers here, and he is the bomber. There's not much more to even be said about it, and that approach game is nasty. Paul Casey at $8,400 is insanely underpriced on DraftKings. That's a cash game lock. He's made 23 cuts in a row now, I think. He's gone well over a year without a missed cut. And his top 20 percentage is 56%. Top 30 percentage of 70%. He has no wins, and his top 5 percentage is only 20%. Only 20%. Only a fifth of the time he finishes in the top 5 and is a must play. Only 5% of the time. But yeah, Casey is rock solid. He will not do you wrong. He just won't. So for $8,400, incredibly underpriced on DraftKings, you can hammer him home. He's an extremely safe play. Thomas Pieters finished 5th here in this event, another European guy, although I think he'll be making the switch to the PGA Tour here soon, if he hasn't already. His long-term numbers are a lot more shaky. And his fantasy scoring numbers are not great at all. I think he does tend to play on harder courses, but I'm not seeing a lot that really sticks out with Peters. I know that he finished 13th last week. Scrambling game is bad. He can't putt on POA. Doesn't look good in strong fields. There's nothing really sticks out to me about his game. He's only hitting the ball 296 yards off the tee when he came into the PGA Tour touted as a super long bomber. I think he only has a win or two on the European Tour. I know that he looked great in the Masters last year, so a lot of people know him. I'm just not on Peters myself. Ross Fisher finished third last year. He's $8,200, $9,700 on FanDuel. At Abu Dhabi, he almost won. He finished runner-up there. I really like Ross Fisher here. A lot of people don't know who he is. He was on Tiger Woods' video games for whatever reason, but that might be the reason people know him. But he is a real OG European Tour golfer. He's been on the European Tour for years and years and has always been a top-ranked golfer in the world. He's ranked 39th. Or no, he's ranked 27th in the world right now. He's had a very good, or he always has a good European Tour season. He's just a yearly European Tour stud, and he used to play more on the PGA Tour, but now he only comes for like these WGC events and whatnot. I like Fisher a lot. I think people are going to go to Fratelli at this exact price, but Fratelli, I don't know, we can still have the rug pulled out from underneath us with him. Fisher's is definitely much more of a known commodity. His odds are better. He's actually played this course before and did very, very well. So I like him over Fratelli straight up, even though we'll talk about him now. Fratelli, he was my guy last week. I was very excited for him, like I'm excited for a few other guys here in this tournament. And he did very well. Finished T11 last week at the Honda Classic. What a debut. And he'd been red hot for him in Europe. Finished 18th at the Abu Dhabi tournament there. He's got a win. He's got a couple of wins on the European Tour, but he's only playing the PGA Tour 3 times and only once in the regular season. So he hasn't played a WGC event here at all. He's still young. He's coming off of the African Tour. I think he's only played on the European Tour for about a year or two, but he's a really, really nice-looking young golfer with a great game log. If you look at his game log, you're almost going to play him immediately, just like Fitzpatrick or Hatton. But know that is the European Tour. As far as odds, his odds are terrible compared to everyone else in this range. But I don't know. First time at this course, I'm not feeling it. But on FanDuel, he is absolutely in play at $8,800. That is a pretty good play over there, so I'd play him over there. Kevin Chappell is in amazing form. All right, Kevin Chappell sucked at this tournament last year, just like Noren, T55 last year. But man, his form this year is awesome. All top 20s pretty much. 31st at the Waste Management, but still he's hitting the ball 310 yards off the tee. He's just so long now, and his approach game has been rock solid for a year or two now. Like anytime that ball striking comes into play, you think Kevin Chappell. And he has a few wins on tour now. For the longest of times, he hadn't had a win. But now that he's broken through, he's gotten a couple wins on tour. Chappell's someone that I like quite a bit this year. And any experience is good experience. I don't mind the T55 last year that much at all. Ches Reavie, after a couple of runner-up finishes, he missed the cut by one stroke at the Genesis Open. So I'm all about this guy, man. People think of him as like a Jim Furyk type, but he hits the ball 291 yards off the tee. That's not like horrible. It's not like Wesley Bryan or anything. And his driving accuracy is pretty much perfect. His green the regulation percentage, also perfect. Very similar play to Brian Harman here. They're both around the same price, and they both look about the same play because they're more of your accuracy guys that can strike the ball really well. Chaz is just not a very good putter, but he does better at strong fields than Brian Harman does. Although, don't tell that to him last year when he almost won the U.S. Open. But so for these two guys, I think they're both going to be overlooked because Ches Reavie off the miscut, despite the fact that he was the top 20, top 30 machine for months and months and months before that, and had runner-up finishes going into his one measly missed cut at the Genesis. I don't know, man. I could. It's hard to see me playing him too much, but I might play just because of the price, and a lot of the guys in this range, like Chappell, that I like. But I could I could play him in my cash lineup, honestly. He's a really nice cash gameplay, and I don't even care that he's coming off of a missed cut. Although, in a way, cash games in a no-cut event, you kind of almost want to go more for just like all your bombers and guys that you think can score a lot, since no one's getting cut. So, I don't know. If there was a cut, I'd be more into Ches Reavie, but since there's no cut, I guess I'm not as into him as I would be, but I still do like him, and I don't think you should get off of him for one little missed cut by one stroke at a tournament that's not anything similar to this tournament here. Brian Harman, he was all top 5s and top 10s throughout the swing season, and then just finished dead last at the Farmers. He does that. He honestly does that. Turned it around last week at the Honda Classic after a few weeks off. So for $8,000 on DraftKings, yeah, I'll play him. I'll have my exposure to him for sure. No question about that. Very, very good Poa Nui green putter. Really just a great putter overall. Every statistic of his outside of driving distance is in the positive by a pretty good amount. So I'm all about Harman. I kind of like him straight up over Reavie, even though Reavie's odds are better, which is weird to me because I don't see Reavie as someone that wins tournaments, but Harman is someone that does win tournaments. So that's weird. But Louis Oosthuizen, coming at 70 to 1 odds, so he really does stick out as one of the lowest value plays in this $8,000 range. But he's another guy that's like a real cut maker, but doesn't post a lot of like top 10s unless it's like a major. You know, his strong field numbers are going to be just immaculate. But other than that, I don't know. I'm not really feeling Louis as much this week as I was like last week. Throughout the season, though, he's going to be someone flying under the radar a bit. I just don't like him this week. Berger, I liked him last week, but I'm not feeling him as much this week. Not really sure why. I guess it's because we're leaving Florida and just like his price and where he's at. I don't know. I know that he can hit the ball pretty far. He's known as like a bomber, but right now he's not even hitting it 300 yards. And his birdie or better percentage is pretty weak. I don't know. He looked very horrible at the Genesis Open. I know he turned it around last week, but 79 is still, he's not like underpriced or anything, so I don't know if I'll be on him as much. And I like Webb Simpson right here at $7,800 a lot better. After a miscut at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, he just turned it right back around with another top 5 finish. So that's 2 for the year. He started the year at the Sony Open with a T4, and last week finished 5th at the Honda Classic. Whenever I think ball striking, I think Webb Simpson, because I know that he's shitty at putting, theoretically, but right now, his statistics actually, like, putting is something that sticks out for him. Really, it's a driver that's been shitty. Like, he's been really short off the tee, 290 yards off the tee, but also with a poor driving accuracy, so kind of looking like a Patrick Reed type, but I like Simpson's upside. He did very well for me last week, and I want to kind of keep rolling with him because he just doesn't get enough ownership week to week. He really doesn't, and he's just underpriced here, I think, a little bit. Xander Schauffele, $7,800. Finished the year last year with a couple of wins, and he does have that upside, but he's always kind of a little bit overpriced for me week to week, and I don't really like his approach game very much. I do like his distance off the tee, though, but just compare to the guys around him, not a huge fan. Another big chalk guy, Rafael Cabrera Bello, $7,700. Now has 3 straight top 30 finishes without a top 25. So his performances have been very, very stable, 26th, 26th, 29th of the last 3 weeks. But long term, look at his Euro game log and whatnot. He's been crushing it. Hasn't even come close to missing cuts. You know that he is a green regulation monster. I'm going to be underweight on him for sure, even though his approach game is off of the freaking charts right now, and I like that. He's only hitting the ball 280 off the tee. Not really the bomber you're looking for here, but that's the only reason I can think not to play him. Maybe it also looks like he struggles on Poa Nui green putting, but top 5 of the WGC, HSBC championships. He's going to be very, very, very popular. I think he was almost 30% owned the last 2 weeks. So he's kind of scary. There's no way I could ever be overweight on him here. I'm definitely going to be underweight. So I might as well go reasonably underweight. The price is good for him, 77, but I like there are some much better pivots in this range here. Like Brennan Grace, same price. He's been low-key consistent, can strike the ball pretty well. You got Mark Leishman at $7,600. I don't like where he's going statistically because he was in incredible form all the way up till the Waste Management, just making cuts, finishing top 5, top 2 during the FedEx Cup playoffs. He was just insane, but he was riding his approach game the entire way, and those wheels have fallen off of him in the last few tournaments. Like at the Waste Management, he finished T31, and the Sony Open, I had noticed that his approach game had fallen down, and now it looks like his approach game is like, it looks like his averages overall just average to the field, but I know the last few weeks he's been very, very poor. He's just spraying it off of not off the tee, but off of the fairway. So I'm worried about Leishman there, even though his price looks amazing for how his form has been. And then there's this guy, Matthew Fitzpatrick. If you don't know golf very well, you might think he's a rookie, but he's played on the PGA Tour quite a bit, and it's important to remember that Fitzpatrick does not play that great on the PGA Tour. However, on the European Tour, he is freakishly amazing. Over the last several months, nothing but top 15 finishes. Nothing. No exceptions. All top 15 finishes. He is a beast. 3rd overall at the Abu Dhabi tournament. Now, this guy drives the ball 285 yards off of the tee. Very short. Although this used to be, I remember from a couple years ago, when we were looking at him heavily for the Masters and British Open, he was in the ball like 260, 270. He's gained some distance. They've been working with him. He is a par 4 machine. His par 4 scoring is almost as good as Dustin Johnson's when looking at fantasy scoring. His statistics, like green the regulation, birdie or better percentage, not as hot on the PGA Tour, but they don't keep these stats, or at least birdie or better percentage. They don't keep those stats on the European Tour, but they have to be off the charts with how he's been performing. He's a very, very, very good Poa Nui green putter. I don't know if the sample size has to be all right because over the last 2 years he's played 26 events. I mean, it's not like he's a scrub or anything. So we've definitely got a sample there with him, and he's quite good at putting. That's always been his wheelhouse. Like, he's a magnificent putter. But his form has been so crazy consistent. I don't know how the switch to the United States will affect him, but if we're looking at Dylan Fratelli, I mean, it didn't phase him one bit. It didn't phase Fleetwood one bit. The only person it seemed to phase was Tyrrell Hatton. And Hatton can be a bit of a head case. I mean, look at the Masters last year. So Fitzpatrick, if you're just looking at the DraftKings game log, you're going to go insane with him. I like fading him on DraftKings. Honestly, you can miss me with Fitzpatrick on DraftKings. He's a bit of a fish play there. I love him on FanDuel. Absolutely love him on FanDuel. $9,400, very cheap. On FanDuel, they do not keep European Tour game logs. No one even realizes how crazy he's been. So if you're going to play him, the sharp move is playing him on FanDuel, or playing him on Draft, where he's very, very, very under projected there. Gary Woodland is a play that everyone's talking about. I hear a lot of Gary Woodland talk right now. While on the Waste Management, a few other top 15 finishes throughout the year. So far, missed the cut by a couple of strokes at Pebble Beach. That wasn't the greatest, but turned it around. Last week, he was looking pretty good at the Honda Classic until the end there. He kind of fell apart, finished T49. But he leads the tour in green the regulation percentage. Strokes gained approach, he's been a machine. And that might be understating it, because over the last year or two, he's consistently like a top 5 guy in approach. The only thing he can't really do is scramble, and that's not that important here. Good at par 4 scoring. Everything about Gary Woodland just gets a thumbs up and a Borat. Very nice from me. So I like Woodland. He's very nice. Very nice. Matt Kuchar also, he's always very nice to me. No one has a better looking long-term form metric in this range compared to Kuchar. Like, Kuchar is just mispriced. $10,500 on FanDuel. That's a good price. $7,600 on DraftKings, not so much. But it's pretty much a tradition at this point for DraftKings to seriously underprice Matt Kuchar in a strong field. We've been talking about these percentages, long-term forms. Just a really nice way to just put the numbers out there for you, and there's no better example than Kuchar. Kuchar is $7,600, but it is a fact that over the last 2 years on tour, in 66 events played, his top 5 percentage is 24%. That is disgusting. A quarter of the time he's going to finish top 5 in any given tournament. He has 3 wins in this range. So he's not a non-winner. He can win. He can win. I know he's not known for winning. He doesn't have a major, but he can win. Top 10 percentage of 42%. So almost half of the time he is finishing top 10 in any given event. He is disgustingly good. And honestly, unless it's a course that is like specifically built for him to do poorly at, I will always recommend Matt Kuchar in cash. Always, always, always. He's never, I mean, he'll miss the cut every now and again at like a 9% clip, but he will almost always finish like top 20, top 30 for you. Top 30 percentage of 71%. That's pretty freaking good. And that, while he won't win the tournament as much as, your Dustin Johnsons of the world, he will finish top 5 enough to be in, like, he is in the winning lineup more than almost any golfer on tour. I think he has more top 10 finishes over the last 3 years than any golfer, over Dustin Johnson, over Jordan Spieth, any of them. He is just a top 10 machine. So Kuchar, I can't even begin to express my love for him. Everyone's going to be on Woodland and Fitzpatrick, but on DraftKings, all the Kuchar. And he finished top 20 last year. He's no scrub. He's never been a scrub. He's the most underrated golfer. And even people think about him, and they think of him as like our generation's Jim Furyk, but he hits the ball 288.5 yards off of the tee. It's short, but it's not crazy short. No one in this field is really crazy short. There's no Wes Bryan. You might get down to like the guys that don't belong in the field, but you'll never not see Matt Kuchar in this field until he's like old as can be and doesn't know how to golf anymore. But he still very much knows how to golf. I'll quit gushing over him because he's just an awesome play. Brendan Steele's also another awesome play, but I kind of like him here. I really love him in the West Coast swing. I love abusing him there, and I kind of like jumping off of him at this point of the season, honestly. Because we kind of saw it. He's smashed from the Career Builder through the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Barely hung on at the Genesis, and his odds have tanked. He's like 80-1 now. And usually he's like 40-1. So it's kind of telling that Steele, once he gets off the West Coast swing, kind of shaky. So people are going to be playing him. That game log looks even better than Kuchar's almost, and I don't feel it at all. I would rather go to Duffner at the same price. Steele was horrible at this event last year. Finished T48. Duffner, on the other hand, same odds. He finished T23. Last week he finished 17th at the Honda Classic, and he's a cut-making machine. I think he's made about like 15, 16 in a row, dating to back to last year. Top 30 percentage of 54%. So most of the time he's going to finish top 30 for you. Shoot, 41% top 20 percentage is very, very good. Love that about Duffner. And he can win tournaments too. He's going to come with no ownership, because with Kuchar and Steele, Woodland, Fitzpatrick there, no one's going to take Duffner. And Adam Hadwin, also $7,500. Another nice play here. You could say the same for Kevin Kisner and Patrick Reed too at $7,500. Oh, someone's alarm going off. I don't know why I have to wake up at 7:52 p.m. Pretty sure I was supposed to wake up in the a.m., but anyway. This whole range here is sneaky. Patrick Reed, Kevin Kisner, Adam Hadwin. They're all going to be perfectly fine plays. They're all around 70-80-1, like Steele, Kuchar, Duffner. Well, not Kuchar. Kuchar's a little better, but people are going to be focusing on Leishman, Fitzpatrick, Woodland, Kuchar. They're going to get the ownership. Nobody's going to own Duffner, Hadwin, Kisner, Reed. Like those guys. Maybe not so much Reed, because he sucked terribly last year, and he's coming off of 2 missed cuts in a row. However, these are 2 missed cuts by one stroke. Those are the kind of missed cuts I like. Just one stroke. I don't like how Patrick Reed is 80-1 odds. I don't think I've ever seen him that low before. That's just worrisome. But long-term top 30 percentage of 61%, top 20 percentage of 53%. I know that his form is definitely not as good as back when he was like winning tournaments and stuff a couple of years ago. And I don't know. I know his game's not exactly where it has been in the past, so I'm not going to go crazy with Reed, but I'll take some shares because if he's going to be like $7,500 with like 1-2% ownership, I'll have me some of that for sure. So, going down the $7,400 range, Pat Perez is $7,400. That's not right. People are going to be abusing him. I already saw Roto Grinders notification saying Pat Perez comes in as the top ranked value. So he makes for a nice fade. Just thinking about that right there. His fantasy scoring per hole is magnificent on par 4s, par 3s, par 5s, everything. But he's not the longest off the tee. His driving distance is similar to Kuchar's, if not, actually it's a bit shorter. But his driving accuracy percentage is damn near perfect. Green and regulation percentage near the tops in all of the PGA Tour, and a disgusting 26% birdie or better percentage. In a vacuum, Perez makes a very, very good play here, but he's going to come in with some hefty ownership, I'm sure, because the other guys in this range, Pat Gazire, he just missed the cut horribly last week. Russell Henley will never garner ownership ever. Hao Tong Lee, nope, no one's going to pick him. He was looking good at the Genesis, but then fell apart and finished T53. And people don't even know about Yus Leeton yet, 7,300. Everyone's forgot about Charles Schwartzel. Molinari's not in a great spot. So, yeah, everyone's going to be using Pat Perez here. And I'm kind of with the field and not liking a lot of these guys in this range, although I do love me some. I just like Molinari just because I like Molinari. And I like Schwartzel because that approach game has always been there. It's not there right now. It's actually really crappy looking right now, but he's only played one event, the Genesis, and it wasn't good. But still, I don't know. Charles Schwartzel is someone that I think is underappreciated at the moment and will cost a lot more in like 2 or 3 months. But that's really the play I'm picking from this range. I do like Yus Leeton. You may wonder who I'm talking about here if you're looking through the field. He looks like Juiced Leeton, but it's Yus Leeton, a Dutch guy. $7,600 on FanDuel. I love smashing that play right there. He's similar to Ross Fisher. Honestly, if you're thinking about the European Tour, and if there was like a tier ranking system, he would be right on the same tier as Ross Fisher. But Fisher has that third place finish from last year, so he's way bumped up in price. Leeton came in. Finished T25 here last year. Upper half of the field, not bad. So I don't know why he's priced down towards the bottom of the field here, honestly. Especially on FanDuel. That price is crazy. But yeah, loving me some Leeton, and I like a little Schwartzel, a little Molinari. Not Offie Barnrat, because a lot of people like to look at this at the Smart Golf Bets tournament form sheet, and they don't ever show the difference between like Asian Tour events, so people be looking at Offie Barnrat and going, oh, this guy gets like wins and second place finishes and stuff. He doesn't. Not till Bay Hill. He's going to finish T6 at Bay Hill to make it 3 in a row for the Devil. But other than that, no, don't play Offie Barnrat. Those good finishes are from the Asian Tour where I could have a good finish, I'm sure. Probably not actually, but still. Very, very, very soft fields there. We're going to see that with a few of the guys at the bottom as well. They'll be playing like the Indian Tour, the Japanese Tour, and you want to avoid that. So, $7,200 range. You're going to have a few forgotten guys there. I know that Charlie Hoffman withdrew a few weeks back, but he's still Charlie Hoffman. He's $7,200. He's made like 20 cuts in a row. He's pretty good, and last time I checked, it's almost spring. When spring comes around, you play Charlie Hoffman. You abuse him during the Masters. He's great at the Masters. Through the Texas swing. Last year, Hoffman was $11,000 at the Shell Houston, the Valero Texas Open. And that man made me that man bought me a car. at the Valera Texas Open. I love this guy still, and he's a cut maker supreme. That's always been his thing. So I love him coming under the radar here at $7,200. If he doesn't break like 10% ownership, I'm gonna smash on me some Hoffman. That's for sure. And Kyle Stanley, he's missed a few cuts in a row now, but he's always been a statistical god. Just he's shorter off the tee, but great at hitting greens. Love the green and regulation percentage. I think is the best in the entire field. Yeah. Nope, only behind Gary Woodland. So Stanley, that's always been the name of the game for him, but last year Stanley stuck out a lot because his strokes gained approach metrics were fantastic. I think those died off during the swing season because so far during the regular season, he's been quite negative in approach. It hasn't been great, so not really feeling it. Now, at the same price, $7,200, this is another one of those European Tour FanDuel plays. So everyone will be able to see that one Chris Paisley has been on quite the tear in the short term. His last 4 events, he's looked very, very good. Started by winning at the South African Open, the BMW South African Open. Followed that up with a T5 at Abu Dhabi, a 5th place finish at the Omega Dubai Desert Classic, and most recently, tied for 27th at the Maybank Championship. Now, if you look at that, and you think, wow, this guy is really good. This guy's great. But long term, that's just not the case at all. At all. Let's read a little bit farther, shall we? At the Australian PGA Championship, missed the cut. At the UBS Hong Kong Open, aka a field where half of the field are Asians who qualified and are just god-awful and finished like 20 strokes off of the pace. Yeah, that Hong Kong Open. T23. Not great. At the Andalusia Valderrama Masters, hosted by the Sergio Garcia Foundation. Not a strong field. Missed the cut. Italian Open. Missed the cut. Nope, T58 is the Alfred Dunhill Lynch Championships. Missed the cut. British Masters, supported by Sky Sports. Missed the cut. Yeah, he's not good long term. He does have a tendency to like post a top 5 finish, but then he'll like miss 7 cuts in a row. That's just the kind of golfer he appears to be. And you know, from playing European Tour DraftKings, this is a guy that's never passed like, until recently, he had not been any more than like $6,000. Like he would always be a back end guy, 400, 500 to 1 odds. This is just a little bit of, I think it's a little bit of fool's gold. I know he has 3 top 5 finishes in a row in the European Tour event before his last event. It's just that's about it. He doesn't ever show that like consistently. So he's a bit of a trap play on DraftKings, but for $7,200, almost min price on FanDuel, that's where you play him. Absolutely. So, going down the $7,100 range, we've got Peter Uihlein, who has made the switch to the PGA Tour, missed the cut last week at the Honda Classic, but he really goes to show how, really, I think he's going to be, okay, let's explain it like this. You know how 2 guys will land their ball on the green in a similar spot. The first guy takes the putt, and we can use that line to read the second shot here. I feel like Peter Uihlein and Dylan Fratelli kind of landed on the same spot because they're both newer guys. They're both, they both have recently made their trek onto the PGA Tour. We've seen with Uihlein that while initially he looked pretty good, and mind you, he did kill in this event over the winter. He started off as a really hot, popular name that everyone was going to abuse, like Austin Cook, and then just kind of fizzled out, and everyone's kind of forgotten about him. I think we're going to see that happen with Fratelli. He's gonna look good at first, but then he's going to start missing a few cuts, and then everyone will forget about him. And that's what we see with Uihlein here. And I would like him a little bit more, just if it wasn't for the fact that my guy, my number 1 European Tour guy, one Bernd Weisberger, $7,100. He just absolutely got crushed at the Honda Classic, and I saw that coming like a year away. I knew that was going to happen. I had talked about it. I didn't say exactly that was going to happen, but I made it very clear that this is something that definitely happens to him. He hits the United States, and he just it's a world of difference for him between that and the European Tour, where he makes every single cut. But I think with that out of the way last week, I think that he could turn it around this week for sure. I know that he's a 300-yard driver with extremely good driving accuracy, so he's going to be able to pick his spots here quite well. His approach game is great still. The only thing that he can't do is putt at all. He can't putt whatsoever. He's really bad at putting. But, Poa Nua, that helps a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy with him at all. And he's very well priced on FanDuel. He can't do that either. I would rather play him than Uline straight up, because I know that he is a better golfer than Peter Uline, long-term, short-term, medium-term. I think, I don't know, maybe I'll be wrong about that in the future, but Weisberg is very, very, very good. And I think once he gets, he's probably going to stay around the PGA Tour for, you'd imagine, he probably sticks around till the Masters. I think he's going to have some good finishes between now and the Masters. Paul Dunn, we saw him at Pebble Beach, and he sucked, but he's also a pretty good European Tour golfer. He might be worth a shot or two in GPP, but I don't know. He doesn't really cut it for me off of the tee. A big hype guy right here is Shubhankar Sharma. Oh my gosh, I messed this up. Shubhankar Sharma. Now, if you've been playing European Tour DraftKings, Sharma has been a darling of the community. He would always come in at a very, very low price, and it was sort of like Jang Hoon Wang, where he will just win tournaments out of nowhere. And we're not really sure why. I mean, he's statistically, it's hard to. I can't do any research on this guy. I really can't. There are no statistics that exist from him anywhere. The European Tour hasn't kept any of his stats yet. He played at Abu Dhabi and made the cut, but I can't find any of his stats anywhere, to be quite honest with you. Sharma, we can read his game log a little bit here. He recently missed the cut pretty horribly at the Commercial Bank Qatar Masters and the NBO Oman Open. It's not a good look, but he just won the Maybank Championship, and he just won the Joburg Open. He just did that at the end of 2017. T11 at the Indonesian Masters, T10 at the Hong Kong Open. Other than that, he really just he kicks around the Asian Tour. People are going to see the wins, and he also has a couple wins on the Asian Tour. Like, again, if you look at a certain spreadsheet that a lot of people like to look at for recent form, it'll look like he is the new savior of the world, the next Tiger Woods. It's not the case. I would rather play Jorge Campillo at $7,000 even, straight up over him. Although, he exists for a very good purpose this week. I guarantee you that other people will be making this lineup, but I am absolutely making the Spanish Inquisition lineup because nobody ever expects it. Jorge Campillo, Rafael Cabrera-Bello, Jean Rahm, and Sergio Garcia. Bam, 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 bam. The four horsemen of the Spanish apocalypse. I love that lineup so much. And Campillo's low-key pretty good on the European Tour. No one will play him. He's going to be under 1% owned. I kind of like him. Johnny Vegas, $6,900. He's going to be the cheapest PGA Tour player. He comes in as the 50th ranked world golfer. Or he comes in 50th ranked in official world golf ranking. Just barely made the cut here. And that wasn't the case last week. He just barely missed the cut. And he's missed 3 cuts in a row. But at a no-cut event, he can only do one thing well, and that's score on par 5s. If that's going to be equalized, man, I don't like him at all. And I'm still salty about the Tournament of Champions 2 years ago, or I guess last year, where he came in. I had touted him as this guy who's just great at par 5 scoring and great at no-cut events, and he finished dead freaking last. So I'm still mad at him. But Vegas, I don't know, he's a PGA Tour golfer, so he's going to get a little ownership, and I don't like him. For the same price, I would rather pivot to not Satoshi Kadara. What? Why on earth would I pick him? No, he's for the Asian Tour. The only thing we've seen of him recently is at the Sony Open. He finished dead freaking last. But my favorite play of the week, and perhaps my favorite play ever in DraftKings. This is quite bold, but I've been waiting forever for this guy to make his PGA Tour debut. and it could not come at a better course. One Dean Burmester. If you play European Tour golf, you already know who I'm talking about. Awesome cut maker, and he is extremely long off the tee. He was the longest of anyone in 2016. He's kind of taken a bit of a step back in distance, but he can still absolutely crush it when given the opportunity. He can hit the ball 320 yards off of the tee, no problem. And he's won tournaments on the European Tour event. He makes the cut almost every single week. That's why he'd become a bit of a darling to the Euro Tour players. So I don't know how popular he is going to be. I know we saw Euro guys get love last week. He is so cheap at $6,900, $7,000 on FanDuel's dead minimum price. I want to smash the crap out of him there for sure. But on both sites, I see myself using tons of Dean Burmester because how could you be in a better of a spot to make your PGA Tour debut than at a event where you can, I don't know why my alarm keeps going off so much, jeez, but then you can't do much better than at an event where driving distance is king and you can't miss the cut. That's perfect for him. I love him. I love him so much this week. I'm going to use him probably so much that it's to my detriment, but I am just all about the Dean Burmester play this week. But keep in mind that this is his PGA Tour debut. We don't know exactly how we don't know exactly how he's going to fare. He could finish dead last, but I'm just incredibly bullish because I love this guy. I've always wanted him to come to the PGA Tour. Been asking every single time they have, all these European, you got the Honda Classic, so many European Tour guys came, and I asked, where's Dean Burmester? And he's finally made it. He's coming here. So excited for him. No one else on this slate, honestly. I'm not excited about anyone else on this slate whatsoever. All the guys at the bottom are scrubs. 300 to 1 odds or worse. I wouldn't play any of them, but I am taking a little bit of a look at Gavin Kyle Green. He's shown some upside on the PGA or the European Tour, but probably not going to play him still. And then there's Chan Kim at 6,600 on DraftKings. Dead minimum price. We saw him at the last WGC event. He finished T58. Wasn't great, but supposedly he hits the ball 324 yards. He's like a rookie, like a super rookie. There's almost no data on him whatsoever, but I guess he is this long driver. I don't know. I might take one of the smallest sprinkles on him just because, but really you shouldn't play any of these guys down there. So this has gone on long enough. That will do it for the Taco Tuesday PGA podcast for the WGC Mexico event this week. We're not going to be covering I think it's the Puerto Rico Open or something that's going on too, because no one cares about your $500 short game, and we just don't. So go focus on the WGC Mexico event, because this is where all the best golfers in the world are. You can expect the Domination Station projections to be up very shortly, probably right after I upload this, so it'll probably be up by the time you're listening to this. So come check us out at dfsarmy.com. We had some more guys smash last week. I couldn't find the screenshot, but someone, I can't remember who, I'm supposed to give him a shout out. He finished second in the $12, what was it? The FanDuel $12, I think it was like Punch Shot or something. The one that we'd won the week before, so we almost won that thing 2 weeks in a row. So good job, guys. Sorry I don't remember exactly what your name was, because I can't find a screenshot anywhere. I'm supposed to give you a shout out, but there we go. That'll do it for Taco Tuesday PGA DFS podcast. Check us out, dfsarmy.com. Use promo code TACO on sign up for a lifetime 10% off. And I will see you guys next week at the Valspar Championship. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the DFS Army podcast. Join the DFS Army today and gain access to our private Slack chat, where you can chat with real DFS pros and coaches, as well as other DFS Army members with winning track records. Also included in your membership is access to our premium articles, DFS Army weighted projections for every sport we offer, from NFL to MMA, weekly player picks and cheat sheets, the strategy vault of timeless concepts, and the DFS Army Domination Station, a truly state-of-the-art lineup optimizer, offering your personal projections or ours. The DFS Army membership is the best value across the industry. Join today and get 2 free ebooks, as well as the secrets to unlocking a new level to your game.